Well, let's talk some NBA. I want to talk about a team you know pretty well and a guy you know pretty well. Two guys, actually. Erik Spoelstra, he recently compared Anthony Edwards to Dwyane Wade. He said, quote, "It's hard to look at Anthony Edwards and not see D Wade. The way he moves, competes, and electrifies the crowd. Yes, that reminds me of number 3." We actually have the video of that also, so we can take a listen to that now.
Is there a particular player on this Team USA team that reminds you of D Wade?
Yeah. We know who that is. It's hard not to look at Anthony Edwards and not see Dwyane Wade in him. And I'm not a guy for comparisons. I'm not. But the way he moves, the way he competes, the way he electrifies a crowd, yes, that reminds me of number 3. And I have told Anthony that. And I feel like I'm going back in time, and it's making me younger again. I'm really enjoying it.
Antoine, Anthony Edwards has been getting nothing but accolades, since his time playing with Team USA, during this FIBA Cup situation. I mean, he just is a dog. Like, he just has a competitiveness, a stature about him that is just so beyond his years, such a veteran. His trash talk game is absolutely phenomenal, but he backs it up. And to hear Erik Spoelstra, somebody who knows D Wade, one of the best players to ever do it, recent Hall of Famer, congrats to the Flash, to hear that comparison this early in Ant-Man's career. I mean, do you see the similarities, and what do you think of the comparison?
I like it. I don't know. I haven't seen Anthony Edwards play enough. Obviously, I watched him during the season, but playing with D Wade and seeing him every day on the practice floor as well as in the games. I mean, I know where D Wade is at. But with Anthony Edwards, I think I could see some of the similarities. I think Anthony Edwards was a better jump shooter than D Wade from range. Because obviously D Wade was not really necessarily a great 3-point shooter. That's not something D Wade did. He was more of a slasher, a guy that went to the basket. One thing I do like about him, and one thing about D Wade is D Wade is super competitive. And I think that's one thing that stands out to me about Anthony Edwards. He's super competitive. I worry a little bit because we've seen, obviously, from Kevin Garnett and certain superstars that have played in Minnesota, you can kind of get caught in the hole down there because they haven't won a lot. So hopefully Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns can turn that around. So sometimes he can get overlooked, but the skill set is there. I watched him play in the SEC. And I was covering the SEC at the time. So I got to see how good this guy really was in 1 year. But I could see it. I just think he has more range than D Wade. Anything outside of that, I could see the similarities that people do see. But Anthony Edwards has more range. The handle's probably the same. They both can get anywhere they want to on the court. They both are super athletic. So I like it. I think it's a fair comparison. And I have so much respect for Erik Spoelstra. And he's the one guy. People don't know this. And if that comes from Erik Spoelstra, it's actually probably accurate because
for sure
he's the one guy. He's the one guy that worked with D Wade every single day in developing his game. And a lot of people don't know that. Spo was the one guy that was in the gym with him. He was the individual coach that worked with D Wade. So if he's saying that, it's probably 100% facts.
No, absolutely. I mean, people don't know that Erik Spoelstra, I think people forget, he literally started from the bottom within the Miami Heat organization. He was logging film and became a head coach. So he knows this team and the players that have come in and out of this organization like the back of his hand. If he says it, it's got to be factual. I do agree the competitiveness of Anthony Edwards is something that I see a lot of similarities in with D Wade, especially to have that so young. He is such a dynamic player. His level of just desire to constantly be better and to constantly just improve the people around him. Something you did say, though, that kind of stood out to me is that, because the Timberwolves haven't won, it may get overlooked. And it's interesting you say that because Karl-Anthony Towns a few months ago, last month maybe, he famously or infamously, gave that quote about the Timberwolves having 3 bigs and us really never seeing that, not really seeing that in the league, and if it can work. And he said, just watch it. Well, we've watched it for X amount of seasons, and it hasn't worked. Do you think that this is the year that it works? Not saying that this is a team that goes all the way and wins a chip, but do you see this team just accumulating more success? And if not, do you think it's time to blow this situation up?
Well, one, I don't think you blow it up. I think you got two young stars in Karl Anthony Towns and obviously Anthony Edwards. So it's so hard to draft well and get guys of their skill set. So you don't want to start over. Sometimes you got to find the right fit coach-wise, and then you got to find the right personnel to go around those guys.
Yeah.
So that's the process that takes a little time to get there, to put the right pieces around them. And then you in the West. The West is tough. So you really don't have a lot of time. So it's different than being in the East, where you take your time, develop a little bit. Look at the Miami Heat team. When you look about 9 undrafted free agents and how they still was able to get to the finals, you're not doing that in the Western Conference. You got to have guys that have been together for a while. You got to have basically 2 to 3 stars per team to try to make a deep run and to be successful. So I think with Minnesota, they got to continue to put the right pieces around that talent. And that's the thing about them. If they can do that, and if they can accumulate, I don't necessarily know where you want to start at, but you got to make sure the pieces that fit those guys' skill set. Karl Anthony Towns is a great talent.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards obviously a great talent individually. Both of these guys are very talented offensively. Is Rudy Gobert the right guy to have around him at center? Or do you play Anthony Towns at center and get another power forward? Do you get a scoring point guard, or do you get a distributing point guard, because Anthony Edwards can create his own shot?
Right.
Those are things that got to come from up top that they got to figure out. But you got two guys that you don't blow it up. You continue to try to build around those guys.
I don't know. I feel like at some point you have to entertain blowing it up, because how much longer do you try to make it work with the 3 of them without removing one of them or 2 of them? I just feel like at this stage in the game, the talent of Anthony Edwards is only going to increase. Karl Anthony Towns has his shortcomings, but I believe that he hasn't reached his ceiling yet. Rudy Gobert, for me, is the biggest question mark. Like, I'm going to be honest, like, I get it, Defensive Player of the Year multiple times. I'm confused by how that's happened so many times. I don't really see him a lot of the times being this like over dominant defensive powerhouse. I'm confused how he's won the award 3 times, but it is what it is. I didn't vote on it, but I just don't see how you can continue trying to force this trio to work without figuring out which one of them, or if not, which 2 of them has to go. Otherwise, you're wasting the talent of the other.
Well, I think, obviously people see the success of the Joker and Jokic, but Jokic is a very unique center. It's a guy that gets triple doubles.
True.
He's a guy that makes so many other players better. Rudy Gobert is a typical center from back in the day. Block shots, rebound, not really skilled offensively. So that style of play does not work anymore in the NBA.
He's a rim protector at best, Antoine. Yeah, let's say what it is.
I would agree with
He's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year whose only defense is protecting the rim. Explain to me how that works.
It doesn't work. I think the game has just changed. I don't want to take away from his individual accolades that he was able to accomplish, but that game has changed. You got mobile centers. You think about Embiid and the Joker, the 2 best centers that we got in this league. Those guys stepping out, shooting threes. They can put the ball on the floor. They can make plays for others. This is a different game now. I'm not saying I wouldn't want a Rudy Gobert on my team, but you're going to be limited. And if he's one of your main big 3, I don't think you can be successful and make a deep run. I'm not saying he can't be a part of your team, but you may have to lessen his role. This is the type of guy you want to play 24 minutes. You don't want him playing 35 minutes. So that's where the problem lies. It's just the game has changed. The traditional big man center does not necessarily work at a very, very high level in the league anymore. These guys that are playing center now are versatile. They can get triple doubles. They can step out, shoot the 3. They can make plays for others. And that's what we're seeing. So the game is just not in that sense anymore, where back in the day, you would love to have a Rudy Gobert, a guy that can block shots and rebound.
For sure.
But now the game has changed. I think in Minnesota, he can't be a part of my big 3. I'm not saying he can't be a part of the team.
Right.
But we have to get another guy there, whether that's adding a point guard that's a part of this big 3, or maybe another wing, but he can't be a part of it. He could be a part of the team. He definitely could be a guy, but he can't be a guy playing 35 minutes. He has to be that typical bag-up center that's going to give you 18 to 24 minutes a night, But if he's your big three, you're not going to win in this league. Not now. Too many versatile big men.
No, absolutely. I think that the center position has drastically changed. We don't have a traditional center anymore. Rudy Gobert is very much that. Absolutely no offensive game whatsoever, which makes him a liability on the floor. I don't think that in this day and age, and I have this conversation all the time about a multitude of different players, you cannot have a player on the floor who has no offensive game at all because he becomes a liability. Then essentially you're playing 5-on-4, because what's going to happen is the opposing defense is going to go ahead and do what? Double team one of your better shooters, leaving your non-offensive player wide open to do what exactly? It's a liability. It can't be the case, which is one of the reasons why I say that at some point the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to have to look at who's the weak link. And for me, the weak link is Rudy Gobert. I think that Cat and Anthony Edwards can go ahead and coexist with each other. But I just don't think you could have a big three with a guy who does not go ahead and even attempt, or when he does attempt, it's just mediocre at best to shoot that ball.